Okay. I guess I'm calling to order the April 18th, 2024 meeting of the Sherborn Conservation Commission. We'll do a roll call. And okay, so Michael Lesser, present. Jacob?
Present, but can't find the mute button.
Say your name.
Worked.
Jacob Strauss, present.
Kurt?
Kurt Stiegel, present.
Courtney?
Courtney, I present.
Matthew? Matt?
Matt Olair, present.
Terry?
Terry Luskin, present.
Steve? Whoops. You there, Steve?
Yes, it wasn't letting, I'm Steve Scrimshaw, present.
Okay, fine. We're all here. Any agenda items that we're not anticipating in the last 48 hours of some critical need? Hearing none. We'll just go on with the agenda here, which I guess we could start. Let's see. Okay. Guess it's 7:20. We're going to be, I assume, just continuing that hearing. If I got it straight, Joyce.
That's correct.
Okay. Let's see. I guess I do have to wait till 7:20. Anybody have any particular announcements? Okay. There's no warrant. There are no minutes for today. And let's do the administrative approvals. We have 4 of them on the agenda. Are they 44-page Farm Road? Is that?
So they're all approved.
And they're all out of jurisdiction.
They're all in a jurisdiction.
Okay. Got that out of the way. And let's see. I have anything else that's sort of quick? I guess there was I guess there's town meeting next week. Has to give us an announcement. Go there, make sure our budgets are approved. And I will. Okay. Guess there's nothing else on the agenda that I can do in 30 seconds. I think I will declare it 7:20, and I am reopening the continued public hearing for the notice of intent of 191 Maple Street. So that is the applicant. Have we gotten a consent to continue it?
Yes, we got a request to continue.
Okay, so we want to do 7:20 next time?
Well, we can do that, yes.
What do we have? Saying we can or we couldn't? I couldn't, sorry, you were a little muffled.
We can, yes.
Okay, so let's I move to continue the public hearing on 191 Maple Street until May 2nd at 7:20 p.m.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, roll call vote. Michael, aye. Courtney?
Aye.
Jacob?
Aye.
Steve?
Aye.
Kurt?
Aye.
Terry?
Aye.
Matt?
Aye.
Okay. Now we can get to okay, land management discussion. on invasives management on Conservation Commission properties with a focus on Peters Hill. We've got quite a crew here. Bat some issues around. Thank you for coming. Many of us have been on the site visit to Peters Hill that we're focusing on. I'd say I'll start with the easiest one, is that Ted showed us some wonderful areas up there that I hadn't realized or hadn't seen in years. And I think for the rest of us there is one area. The easiest part is there's an area there where the plants community is of quite interest value. And right now there's a trail running right through it. And so there, but there is a nice, easy place to it's not a very long part of the trail. I don't know whether you'd say it's 40 or 50 feet or something, or 50 or so, that we can redirect the trail around this area and protect it. Obviously, people could wander in there to look at things, but this would sort of protect a nice plant community. I would say from everybody who was there, do we all feel that that's to me, it seems like a nice thing to do, and it wouldn't be that hard. But I don't know, what do other people on the commission think?
I agree.
Yep, I agree.
Agreed.
Okay,
Yeah, I agree.
fine. Then we need to vote, or we basically say we'll go do that sometime. I don't know. What do we think? Need to vote?
I don't think we need to vote on that.
Okay,
We're not proposing to spend lots of cash.
yeah. We're gonna do a lot of sweat equity. We'll organize a weekend time there where we'll all be marching back and forth and tramping down the trail. We'll walk back and forth for a few hours and create a new trail and put up some signage to stop people. I guess, oh yes, we're gonna transplant pine trees. That's what I remember now. That'll block off the other trail. And see how that holds up. Since that supposedly works. But we'll try it. Okay. Did anybody, Ted or anybody else want to comment on that trail issue? What it means?
No, I think that sums it up, Michael. I think it is pretty simple move. And when we're walking through there, we did see a little bit of erosion on the trail that's going right through that glade right now. So I think it is a very good idea to protect that habitat.
Okay. The second thing is fairly easy too, except as long as people don't fall off the cliff. Is we saw an area where there's some garlic mustard that could be hand removed before it spreads much. And I went back there and took out 3 of them that were already up on the top of the cliff. Now we can go do the ones that are a little further down. And whether we, I don't know, I don't mind going there myself, whether it's just a volunteer effort amongst the commission and anybody else who's listening here, that we could set up a day and go there, and somebody could wait at the bottom with a tarp to catch us. But hopefully we could all just pull out a bunch of stuff and bag it. And that would be an easy thing to do. So if we do that on a weekend sometime, I think we probably have some number of weeks or more before that flowers. I can't remember how long it could flower soonish, but I think we have some.
Yeah, I think it could flower very soon.
Okay.
I would suggest doing it within the next 2, maybe 3 weeks, but pretty soon doing that. I spoke with Kelly. I know Kelly's not here tonight, but I suggested that, when the group does that I just go up and show the group where the rare plants are. So there won't be any kind of trampling of that habitat because they're real close to the leading edge of the garlic mustard. So it should be aware of just where they are. There's some other really unusual native plants in there too. It's a real cool habitat. So, I could just go up with a group and just, sort of point that out, as people get to work on the garlic mustard.
Is it down at that lower, that lower down below the top is where the.
No, it's sort of right on the shelf. It's right on the shelf. It's sort of the
Right, right
break
above.
of the forest, and then it goes, it takes a jump down, and most of the garlic mustard is below. It's sort of right. I'd say the leading edge of the garlic mustard is almost in that population. So,
Oh, okay, yeah, then I'm
Yeah.
not clear myself then, okay.
Yeah.
So you're around, you're available some weekend days or whatever, or?
yeah,
Are other people on the commission interested in, or anybody else here on the screen interested in, plucking these nefarious beasts out of the soil?
I would, it depends on the date, sadly.
Okay, does it make a difference whether it's during the week or a weekend? I assume it's probably easier on the weekend, maybe, I don't know. What do people say? Pipe up as to if you're interested and what times might work.
I can go whenever.
Mm-hmm.
I probably cannot go on during the week, but possibly on a weekend.
Okay,
It'd be weekend only, but if there's a quorum that would work otherwise, you should go ahead.
okay. So anybody
Sam,
else
you're
who's
muted if you're
interested?
talking.
Are you speaking, Sam? You're muted.
Sorry, I was saying that I think Kelly was also trying to organize a group during the week sometime so people who could make it during the week might have one option, and other people who can only do weekend. If there's still more left up there, we might have two different outings.
Okay, sure. Do you have a particular preference yourself, if you're part of that?
I would do it during the week.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Then we'll try to pick some time, and I guess Kelly's interested in doing it too, I guess. If he wants to go venture down there. Okay, we'll send out some sort of little doodle kind of thing and get something where even if people. And are you, Ted, available during the week at some times if to ward us off from the
Yeah, I could be, Michael. I'm not far away. I would join too. I have thrown out my back pretty badly, so at this point I'm not. That's an excuse, but I really can't bend over. But
We don't
to
want you,
pick things up. So
yeah, we don't want you to fall off the cliff. Any, you're the one with the knowledge that we can't lose, so.
As long as we keep his head alive. Okay, so we'll figure out something soon, even if it's a mixture of days or whatever, or just a few people can go out there at some point soon. I don't think it's going to take very much from what I saw, as long as we're just careful. Okay, moving on to the third and the biggest thing on Peters Hill that has an issue for lots of properties in town, and what we feel about the whole issue of the use of herbicides. Ted has suggested, and he showed us an area of buckthorn that he thought could only really be adequately addressed by using glyphosate. And that would probably be done via a commercial, hiring somebody to do it. And there's a fairly big area of a forest that I guess is sprinkled with it. It's not totally taken over. But there's a reasonable bit of smaller saplings. I mean, probably, I guess maybe even less than an inch is basically most of them. And so the issue is whether we do that, and then there's the issues of hand pulling or some other way, or whether that we can mount the effort to even maintain it, since it's going to be a multiple year process. And I guess as Ted presented last, I guess as one of it in his report, this somehow this seems to be a place that it might be worth trying to tackle the buckthorn. I don't know if you want to add to that, Ted, before we, or in the view of why using a herbicide is probably the only way to do it, from your point of view, at least.
Yeah, well, as those of you who came up saw that area, there is a lot of buckthorn in there. And it's really pretty densely congregated under, mostly under these young pines. And it's just above that very special habitat, that glade habitat. So it could very easily move into that. And it also could move into a bigger area of the forest. And I really think that if it is going to be addressed, that using herbicide is the most practical approach to doing it. We did talk about the possibility of hand pulling, but I think we have to keep in mind that there are hundreds and hundreds of buckthorn stems in there. And also, if they're going to be pulled out, the whole thing has to be pulled out. I mean, if the stems are broken off or some of the roots are broken off, I mean, you're just going to get sprouts coming after that. And another consequence of doing a lot of pulling is soil disturbance, which could just lead to further invasions. So, that I would think would be the only real alternative that there would be to herbicide use. We also talked about the possibility of, or it was brought up, of not doing anything at all, just kind of, but except trying to contain the infestation in that patch of woods there. But I think the risk there is that the buckthorn is, it's not just going to stay there, it's dynamic, it's going to keep moving. And to protect the habitat, I mean, they have to come back year after year, every year, just to make sure that nothing is getting into that glade or getting further down into the woods. I just say that one thing we did notice is that there is a field up there. And I think Steve said that the scouts have used that in the past for camping. But anyway, that field, which apparently they have cleared, but that field kind of interrupts two areas of woods on the ridgetop. And when you go south on the ridge of that field, there's almost no buckthorn. There's very, very little buckthorn, which really surprised me. But that field kind of serves as an interruption, and everything, really all the buckthorns on the north side of that field. So when we talked about maybe just contain it, the thought was, well, go down to the woods south of that field, and there are little scatterings of buckthorn here and there, but just to get those out of that woods. So those woods are just, so that it's eliminated from there, from that part of the woods. But I guess, I was suggesting, going back to herbicide, that really is the most practical way of dealing with the problem. And also in terms of who might do it, I was suggesting, an applicator team with experience in natural landscapes and really with a conservation focus. And I do have contacts with some folks out who do that kind of work, contract with conservation organizations to do invasive removal. And anyway, that would be my suggestion of people who would be most appropriate for doing that kind of herbicide work.
Okay. It did come up the issue of cost, it's a little of a chicken and egg issue too, whether we struggle with whether to use herbicides versus whether we hear the cost is just too much.
Right.
You don't have to
Right.
wrestle with the issue. So
Right.
at some point, we don't want to waste people's time giving us a cost estimate. Well, we won't do it, but we could try to get some ballpark figure maybe to see whether it is just out of reach and impractical for our budgets, versus just some marginal containment. Nick, what?
I just had a question for Ted. I just wanted to be clear that the application of the herbicide is to cut stems, and it's either with a wick or a short bristled paintbrush, so there's very little spilling. Is that correct?
That's absolutely correct. No spray. We're not talking about spray. So yeah, direct application of the herbicide. Right.
I would assume there'd be some drippage from I think it was also the glove method on the,
Yeah, for the smaller stems.
Mm.
And anyway, that's a method that uh certainly I use the native plant trust just to describe it, where you have sort of smaller uh stems. There is an application method where you just do it with a glove. You drip a little herbicide on the glove and swipe the foliage, swipe the leaves of those stems where it's really too small to directly apply herbicide through the cut stem method. So that would be an application for the smaller stems.
Ted, in your experience, how much of it is gone after the first year? Because my thinking is maybe the second year we could pull it.
That's a good question. I've worked on, a bunch of glossy buckthorn projects. I would say in the ones that, boy, it depends.
It does.
I would say that in an infestation like that, it depends on how, it depends really on the team that's doing it and how much time they can spend. But I would think that after 1 year, if you have a team of, say, 3 or 4 people in there and they're professionals and everything, that probably on the order of 90% would be treated in the first year. That doesn't mean that nothing is going to come back, because there is a seed bank there and you're going to have sprouts the next year. But one thing that I've learned, and probably everybody know, or people who've dealt with this shrub know, is that if you don't follow up, if you don't do it for a period of years, it's just going to come right back. And when it does come back, sometimes it comes back as sprouts coming off of root systems, and then it becomes much more difficult to treat. So I would think, if we have professionals there, they would be talking more specifically about, how they would approach it and what their own assessment would be. But I would think we'd be talking about at least 3 years of treatment, And then there would have to be follow-up monitoring by the commission or by volunteers, if you have sort of Friends of Peters Hill or something like that.
Steve, just go ahead. People, it's a free for all. People just talk. You muted. You're muted.
Thank you. 2 questions, one sort of question observation. The woods, I think we're just calling it the southern end of the field. This
Right.
is a more mature trees and more dense shade. Is that then?
Glossy buckthorn can tolerate a lot of shade. And so, for example, at the Barber Reservation, there are some places where there are just dense buckthorn infestations under shade. So I think it's well able to tolerate that condition. Why it is not in that, so maybe it's been migrating in from the power line, and just that field and again, we don't know who's been mowing it, but that field has sort of served as an interruption, because we don't see any of the, because it has been mowed, there hasn't, as I'm viewing it, there hasn't been any buckthorn that's moved down beyond that field.
Okay, the other question, maybe Nick might be able to answer it, is just how do the berries get moved, or how do they move along through this area? Are birds dropping them, Nick, or what, the berries, or what's?
I expect Ted knows better than I, but it would be birds, small mammals, anything that's after the fruit around the seed is going to carry those berries. So incredible number of vectors can carry those seeds. And I was just looking it up. Ted's right too, that the seeds in the soil can last multiple years. I don't think it's so long as a cherry pit that can last 70 years, but at least multiple years, 3, 4, 5 years probably. So there is a soil seed bank, and there's constant movement of the seeds in the area.
Okay, maybe the question could be boiled down to is, we got rid of all the buckthorn there, would that be sort of a significant, not that significant in terms of having more berries move into the areas we don't want to see buckthorn in?
Oh, Steve, as your question is, if the buckthorn is eliminated there, would that mean that there's less likelihood of seeds or whatever propagules spreading into further area of the woods? Or
Yes, or how less likely is it, or how much impact?
well, I think it would be less like, it doesn't eliminate the possibility altogether, but I think there would be less of that source there, from which birds or small mammals would be carrying the fruits. But one couldn't guarantee, that there would never be any spread in there. I will just say that on the other side of the property, down by Coolidge Street, at the bottom of the cliffs, there is some buckthorn down there too. So it's there as well.
The area that's most thickly infested, does that go right up to the border of the town land, or
Yeah, it pretty much goes right up to the border. It goes going eastward, I guess, northeast, kind of northeastward. It in that woodland area, it's on both sides of that trail that comes in from the power line.
Okay, so even if we removed it and kept up with it for a number of years, there would still be thick buckthorn on the other side of that property line.
I'm not sure that it's so thick in that direction.
Okay.
It's not. I did take a look at that. It's not as thick in that direction. That doesn't mean there isn't any, of course, but it isn't
everywhere.
Yeah.
So if I would just add, it's impossible to say that there's going to be no seeds moved into that area. Given that, though, Ted, my assessment is that Ted is very right about the fact that the more you reduce the abundance of buckthorn, the fewer seeds are there, the fewer problems you're going to have in the future. That said, the plants that are going to produce the most fruits are on those south-facing edges where they've got a lot of sun. Okay, so I would say where the infestation is thickest and in a south-facing edge, whether it's on Coolidge Street or on the edge of the meadow, the north edge of the meadow, which is going to be south-facing. All right, if you can reduce seed production, that's just like reducing the number of trees. So I think you're getting at it in two ways.
Yeah, I wonder how in the middle of the forest there, how some of all that buckthorn is getting there, in the sense of the model of because a lot of those younger ones don't seed out, don't have berries. They don't get big enough to
No, right now they don't.
How did that all get in there?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I think they were that was more open. I mean, those pines have grown up. And I think probably when they established themselves, they were more open. And birds, who knows? But I think they were brought in probably by birds and definitely by birds and small mammals. Yeah. But I would say that, I mean, they're small now, but give them 4 or 5 years, many of them will be a lot bigger than they are right now.
Oh, yeah. No, I just didn't remember seeing very larger ones that probably bear fruit
Right.
at this point, when we were looking there. But I don't know though, but in terms of alternatives, I guess historically, we haven't, Conservation Commission has not, we've done a few little experiments at the Barber Reservation with herbicides that were very small, and I don't think it was that conclusive one way or another, now that I think about that, which also shows the ability whether we could sustain an effort. And I don't know, and we've always struggled with whether we would ever do that, or whether we would actually do it on some larger scale, whether it's whether it's the science, whether it's a modeling of things, I don't, the information, as I sent out an email, if anybody saw when I started looking at glyphosate, it's all over the place in terms of what people say, I guess. I don't know how to deal with the fact of, I guess even to you, Ted, about saying to use it, that how to deal with the diversity of stuff online about and the science about it and the health issues and
Right.
health issues to applicators and what's the balance of all of that, and does it break down? Does it break down into things that aren't a problem? Do we worry about our groundwater? Some places do, even though one place I looked, as I put in the thing, didn't, actually I should have sent you, forgot to send it to other people, the email, but yeah, there's some place that records testing of water around the country, and they found it in Kentucky in the water there, and in Iowa or some sites, but what few sites they have in their database. But I don't know how to deal with the health risks in a town like ours, even though it is clearly up away from any wetlands and everything else, but it's in bedrock, and who knows where fractures are, and whether the quantity is so small. I don't know. I don't know how you think, whether you have any ideas yourself or anybody here about how to think about this health issue.
I think it's a crucial issue to think about. I do. I will just say that I was the invasive species manager at Native Antelope Plant Trust for a number of years, and we did a lot of projects. They don't do it anymore because of these concerns. So I'll just lay that right out there. But I don't know. We're talking about the people who are applying the herbicide being professionals, being very aware of how to use this stuff and having done it and knowing how to do it right. I don't think I mean, one reason I chose this place or thought of this place as a location for using herbicide was because it was so upland and remote from habitations, and so there wouldn't be a risk of it getting into groundwater or wetlands. And glyphosate relative to other herbicides, breaks down pretty quickly in the soil. So, and a lot of, this will be going directly into the plant tissues. It won't be, in this case, a lot of spillage. There won't be, there'll be very little spillage with this kind of application.
What do other people think?
I would, and I would say too, if we get a contractor like, or just somebody to, an applicator like Chris Politan of Land Stewardship, I think they would have probably more refined ideas than I do about both the risks and methods, methods of direct application.
Okay, others? Nick, anybody else?
I was waiting for Terry. I wanted to hear what Terry had to say.
Okay, where she is.
I'm sort of unpersuaded by the watchful waiting option of the plan. If, for something that's infested already, I'm listening to Ted and saying, all right, well, we can see then 5 years down the road that this becomes almost untreatable, and how are we going to maintain boundaries in those later years? I'd be much more in favor, especially for this controlled application, by someone who has the appropriate training and sensitivities to say, let's get after it now rather than kicking the proverbial can until things are much worse, and make a commitment to a multi-year plan of maintaining what we've, the improvement that we've kind of created within that system.
So you don't have concerns about the herbicide itself?
And I'm cancer survivor girl. I'll just say that part. So Yeah, that very targeted application. This is not spraying
Hmm.
liberally anywhere. And as Ted says, it is my understanding too that it's the kind of deconstruction of the glyphosate is a pretty quick process in the soil. So
Others?
I would just add that the decomposition in the soil depends on biologically active soils. So greatest caution should probably be used where the soil is thinnest, right? Where the material can potentially move through the soil and into cracks in the rock, for example. I'm not too worried about that. If you have a professional applicator and the people who are applying it know that the greatest risk in all of this is directly to themselves, they're going to put the minimum amount required on the stem or on the leaves, all right? Anything that goes into the stem or on the leaves is in fact going to be broken down. It's going to get into the stem, it's going to be translocated down into the roots, okay? If the roots die, they're going to be decomposed. Those roots go into the most biologically active parts of the soil. So I think a stem application, the biggest risk is actually to the applicator and not to the environment. As Terry said, broadcast spraying and use of herbicides around wellheads and things like that is commonly done in Iowa. That's how the stuff really gets into the groundwater.
I agree. I agree with everything Nick said. It's not like I'm probably eating a lot more glyphosate in my Cheerios from when it's sprayed on oats versus putting, a targeted amount on a cut stem. I don't think the commission should take the decision lightly because it's obviously a hot topic in town with concern about water. And I agree with Terry that if we're gonna do it, we should do it right, because like you brought up, Michael, there were some little experiments done at the barber, and I honestly couldn't even tell you where exactly those occurred, and because the cart path all looks the same now, nice and infamous.
Yeah.
So I would think that if the commission is open to considering it, we would want to talk to someone like Chris Politan and see if he would be open to talk with us a little bit more, give us some sort of estimate. And then I think it should be part of a discussion that, it was like when we were talking about snowmobiles. I'm sure people in town will want to know about what's going on and why it's being considered, because like you said, this is novel for us. So I think right now, I guess I'm just interested in hearing whether it sounds like the commission is open to considering it, and maybe we should look at the next step.
Yeah, I was gonna add, I guess, two things. One, I think obviously what we're doing here is we're weighing the risks, which are certainly significant, with the benefits or the need to do so, in terms of sort of upholding our responsibilities for stewardship of this land. And admittedly, I'm far from an expert in any of this. So the extent of my knowledge is what I've heard today, what I heard over the weekend, and what I briefly skimmed Michael's email earlier today. So I lean heavily on what I've heard from others. So I do think the benefits probably outweigh the risk. So I'm comfortable sort of moving forward and on that respect, in the way Courtney just described. I guess the other thing, and Courtney kind of just mentioned it, that this is a novel topic for us, being a relatively new commissioner, I'm sort of curious, sort of what precedent we might be setting, or what happens if someone comes to us and asks to do to apply herbicide on their own property. But if Courtney may have just sort of laid out how we're going to approach that by by putting the information out there to the town, but that was something else I was thinking about, just sort of, I guess I was gonna ask historically if we've ever had to grapple with this type of question. Sounds like maybe not. But also sort of whether or not this sets a precedent, or if we're at all worried about in the future if we're faced with these types of questions again.
I think that's a good question. I think the one thing that works in our favor here for not setting a precedent is that we're not working in a jurisdictional area in terms of our wetland protection stuff. So there's already Joe Blow, your neighbor, who may be, out there with a spray gun going bonkers with, glyphosate that I got on the internet. I think if we ever talk about doing a project where we're using, I know it's not Roundup in the wetland version, it's like rodeo or something.
Rodeo.
Yeah, I think that would be opening a whole nother can of worms. But yeah, I I definitely see what you're saying with that question.
So, Steve, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I mean, given everything I've heard, I don't think that there's a risk-free option or risk-free alternative here. I think we're talking about how would we weigh the risks of doing nothing versus which is expected expansion of these invaded areas versus the risk of doing a removal. And I think from what I've seen so far, it sounds like our concern is primarily to the people who'd be doing the applications. I'm not seeing that there's a much risk to the environmental risk of groundwater or of other environmental risk to the surrounding habitat there. So and so I'd be in favor of learning more about sort of what whether it's feasible to proceed or not.
I'll just chime in here. I think that's a good point, Jacob. I don't know. I don't think we can evaluate it very precisely what the risk of doing nothing is, but obviously it seems like it's an increased risk of it getting into other areas. I'm sort of positively inclined with a professional application if it was supported. I mean, there's a lot of things we want to do maybe, and I don't know how high that is on the list. And I'm curious from Ted, you say Native Plant Trust doesn't use glycophosphates anymore. So how does it handle infestations of?
Native Plant Trust does not, except in one instance, in one place in Concord, do the kind of thing where we used to send out teams of 4 or 5 people. We were all licensed. They don't do that anymore. Because some of the people were young interns, and there was concern that sort of the younger, interns that we had for the summer would not really know how to apply it very safely. And it just became enough of a concern that we decided that it was decided, this after my time actually, not to continue working as a team and contracting with other organizations to do invasive removal. So it wasn't, I mean, we were using herbicides in not only glyphosate, but others as well.
So just if I understand you correctly, and I may not, is that Native Plant Trust still might contract with another, with professionals to do that. Is that correct or not?
Native Plant Trust is on a long-term contract with the town of Concord to do glossy buckthorn removal, and is continuing to do it, but only with, and it's a very limited number, only with 2 or 3 professional staff, not with interns anymore.
They are using glycophosphates.
They're using glyphosate there, yeah.
Nick?
Well, my comment would be there's nothing like oversight to give you a sense of confidence that the job that you proposed and paid for is getting done right. So I don't know whether this would be a job for the conservation agent or somebody on the commission, but I think, you know, you make your best choice about method. You hire the person you think is going to do the most careful job, and then you watch to make sure the job is being done right. I shouldn't probably add this, but in my opinion, there was a failure in oversight for the carrying out of the town forest management plan, all right? That's just a very recent example. The town forest committee was not watching, and the operator broke the rules. We don't want that to happen here. I'm sure that anybody that Ted recommends would not break the rules, but as I said, there's nothing like oversight. Sending somebody up there when they begin the process to say, hey, this is what we agreed on, go ahead and do it, you know, and watch them do it. That person can then report back to the committee and say, yep, we hired the right person and they did the job right, and we all feel good about it.
No, we're gonna have Ted go out and monitor.
And Nick.
Yes, there we go.
I would just say, and again, I think, you know, one of the things about removing these buckthorn, I think one, what I would envision, and we'll see if it happens or not, is that there's a lot of seed bank of native shrubs in there. And buckthorn is occupying the space that those native shrubs should be occupying. That if the buckthorn is removed, as the buckthorn is being removed, I think what we'll see is more blueberry coming in to that stand, and I think we'll be seeing more huckleberry coming into that stand. So I think over 2 or 3 years of application, we'll be seeing, I would predict, a significant improvement in that habitat in terms of, you know, a native association of the plants there.
I guess I'm sensing that a majority is willing to continue to sort of pursue this idea. I'm maybe the least interested in it, in a sense of my own experience, and it's probably maybe not applicable to something like town land, is that, yes, I've been dealing with buckthorn for 25 years here on my property, bordering on wetlands, and yes, I've cleared areas by pulling, and I've seen the blueberries, as you just said, come back in some parts and expand. I guess yes, I can't tell about it. And some of the issues of whether you leave some roots, but there's a seed bank there. There's a seed bank also for the other stuff too that comes up. So it's a race between the buckthorn and the other things, and then you get a lot of little shoots. The deer help a little bit because they like the little shoots. So I know it's doable, but I'm not sure on this scale to do the hand pulling. And from quite a dense area where there were no other trees other than just the buckthorn. But that's my view, and I write people, as Jacob said, you don't think there's, or others don't seem to feel there's a health risk beyond to the applicator, and that we can get a professional applicator and they can avoid that. I guess I'm concerned by more than that, and I guess to even Kurt's thing about precedent issues. Right, clearly we're not dealing with a jurisdictional area, so that I would feel totally different, significantly different about that. And even other areas, when I think of what the precedent is, yeah, I don't know what the example is to say that we're doing it, or whether we have regulations like some towns where I think they've tried to go as far as that if you're going to use Roundup or glyphosate, they have to use a licensed applicator, which is, I think, the way Great Barrington in Mass did it. I'm not sure how you actually obviously enforce that. Is quite difficult, as towns have already expressed that issue when I was reading in one place where they have that kind of rule, but then people are just doing it anyway. And then there's just a lot of education. There's lots of little pamphlets around. Wellesley has, a lot of places have pamphlets to get people to think more carefully before they do the stuff. I guess sensing that there's a majority, I'm not going to press the issue that that's how much to try, other than if I'm willing to say I could get a little area myself that I'll hand pull and see what it compares to, and take on my own little experiment up there. That's side by side, and then we could see what it looks like if we go ahead doing the.
Michael, I'd say that the having a long-term goal of getting to the point where we can manage the remaining buckthorn by hand pulling is a good goal, because we don't want to be doing continued continued applications of herbicides over the long term. So but I'd see it more of a question of, is this something we can do for a couple of years to get to a point where we have something that's manageable long term? Because if on more isolated basis, doing hand pulling, the concerns about, are you going to sort of cause too much disturbance and let the seed bank wake up all at once, or lessened, and things like that.
Yeah, it varies in my experience, but right, you can hire people to pull too. Since we can't do it, I imagine it's a little cheaper to hire people to just go through and pull it all. But right, it's that theory of the little roots that you leave behind, which is inevitable, gonna resprout, and how much you disturb a seed bank that you don't want versus disturb a seed bank that you do want. I mean, I might be half curious to say that if we're hiring anybody to do it, I'd see whether the same people could be hired to do a hand pull area, and look at it side by side to see how it actually. I mean, that would be my desire if we go ahead, is to do some comparison side by side, whether it's my own little effort or we keep the same people to just go do it in a parallel area and see how it goes. Do we want to talk more about it, or do we want to, since I'm sensing that a majority of people want to at least pursue it with somebody, like whether Chris Paladin would come and take a view, or we have to give him a video, or I don't know how far away, he's far away, I guess.
He's in, I think, the town of Montague, Connecticut River Valley. So.
Yeah, I don't know whether we have somebody else close. I don't know how much to impose on somebody to actually look at it. I mean, it's one thing to come to a Zoom meeting. I don't know whether that showing.
But we don't have to pick a specific person right now. I don't think we're gonna add any more to the conversation right now. And like you said, I think the commission wants to get more information, probably from, someone that Ted is recommending, or, I'm sure there's a couple people that he knows of in the field, and we can reach out and see who's available. And
Oh, that's what I was suggesting, whether it's Chris or somebody else.
Well, the person would have to come and look. I would have to see the site to make any kind of reasonable estimate. So,
is that what we want as a whole? That it's time to explore somebody who to even see what the ballpark is for prices and what they talk about.
I believe so.
And of the options we have in terms of whether would it be customary, Ted, for something like this, where we would get a couple of estimates from people?
Certainly get a couple of estimates. What I will do, the two people I know who are really good and do this a lot with conservation organizations, they're both based out in Western Mass. I have contacts with Native Plant Trusts and stuff. I'll see if they know anybody who's a bit closer, that could have, that they could recommend, that could, give an estimate to. But the two people I know who are out there, I could certainly vouch for. They do excellent work. I've worked with them in conservation projects. So
just a matter of whether I assume hopefully, I don't know if the estimates would come in very different, but I'm assuming that if we get somebody who's more local and it's less of a burden for them to,
Well, the travel
yeah,
would
right.
would be different. Yeah,
Well, why don't you go pursue that? So I guess see
sure.
what you can do locally and get back to us and to see whether there is somebody closer by to start with this estimation process. And also more in to come Zoom with us and talk about what we consider some of the health issues and environmental risks or anything else like that. Okay, is that a reasonable closing point for tonight on this? Does anybody else have any other? Okay, I think we're done with this discussion for now, and we'll wait to hear from you, Ted,
Okay.
about that. And meanwhile, we'll go there when we get other people to pull. I guess I shouldn't pull any buckthorn because we have to wait and do it as a parallel experiment, so we can compare.
Plenty more else in other parts of town.
Yes, don't worry, I could just do it in my backyard.
But for the garlic mustard, sure.
Yeah, we'll do
Yeah.
the garlic mustard and do some trail and some pine tree plant transplanting for blocking off the trail. So we'll get out some emails to see who's game to go get dirty. Good. Okay, thank you, Ted, and all the.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Yep. Thanks. Thanks, Sam. Nick.
Thanks.
Then okay. It is 8:12. And let's see, going on to other parts of the agenda here. I will now open the continued public hearing on our Sherborn wetland regulations and drafting of amendments and changes. I guess I started to put everything together, but I didn't have enough time to get it for this meeting. But in terms of issues for this meeting, what I'm curious to just have a little discussion, I think. Okay. Do you have any comments on Phil, Joyce? I'm going to put you on the spot here. Let's see. Oh, no, I'm opening up the wrong file, sorry. Okay. I guess, sorry for the delay. That I think where we left it last time on one of the issues that we were finishing up on the administrative approvals. Share screen.
I'm sorry, I couldn't unmute.
Yeah, no, I thought you were just being.
I wasn't being difficult, sorry.
I thought since I figured I'd ask you even in public about it. Yes, what would you like to say now that you're unmuted?
I don't have anything to say, but I wasn't trying to be silent.
Okay, does that mean you haven't looked at it yet, or you don't won't have any
No,
comment?
I have looked at it yet, but I have definitely not finished with it yet.
Oh, okay, fine.
Initially, I didn't see anything to change, but then I started getting into it, so.
Okay, something to do for the next meeting. So I can incorporate it there. We'll set a deadline here. The administrative approval issue. I guess we're going to, oh, I forgot I actually brought it up. Let's see, where is this going to show up? Sorry, I'm blocking it. I guess we decided last time that we would maybe expand the use of the administrative approval. Let's see, form. I'm trying to pull it up as to how we make decisions here. So just put it side by side. Yeah. Sorry, not prepared, but let's see here. Okay. Basically, we're doing, I'm not looking at the list. I never looked that closely at the actual final form in quite a while here on the right. Where trying to make it a little bigger for people. So basically, it's just out of jurisdiction or in jurisdiction, or it's exempt under our bylaw. The issue of the trees, are we now saying that the tree policy, the dead tree policy would be is just separate? We're not giving administrative approvals, I guess. Or I guess, let me come.
No.
Are we giving, what are we doing with the trees and the administrative approvals?
So
versus
if someone's got if somebody has a tree that's definitely out of the 100-foot buffer zone, I mean, there's no permit required for tree removal.
Oh, yeah,
So
sure.
they're not going to file an AA. So that should go under, all the tree stuff should go under the tree removal policy. I mean, the tree removal application.
Yeah, but that one is only for tree, but that policy only applies to trees in jurisdiction.
Right, but there's no permit you need for trees out of the jurisdiction. I guess unless someone asks, is my tree in or out? They could, in fact, but it wouldn't necessarily be a dead or dying tree. It might just be a tree they want to remove.
But that's, if it's out of jurisdiction, doesn't make a difference. If it's in jurisdiction and it's a live tree, then we would probably have, at this point, having them do RDAs. If it's a dead and dangerous tree under the policy, that is stuff in jurisdiction, if I have it correct. Am I missing something?
So may I ask just an informational question?
By all means.
If I wanted to, on the border of our garden, remove a bunch of Norway maples and replace it with a native hedgerow, what would be the process to get that approval? It's neither dead nor dying. And well, I'm outside of the 200-foot buffer zone, so.
If it's out of the buffer zone, then you don't need any permission from anybody.
Oh, so you can do as you please.
Yeah, you can do. I mean, the only other thing that would come into play was if it's along a scenic road.
And it's Western Ave. So.
Okay, and I don't know those rules, but that's a different part
Okay,
of the.
that's a whole nother scenario. Okay.
Only if it's
Thank
in
you.
the right of way.
Yes.
Good luck defining right of way.
Yeah, I couldn't find a definition of that last time I looked.
Right of way?
Trying to understand where it starts and where it ends.
You mean the right of way?
It's the layout of the street. But you might not know that. Like on some streets, you would know that because the stone wall is likely marks the edge of the layout, or you might have to have your surveyor identify it, whether it's in or out of the layout.
I thought the right of way was defined by some distance from the center of the road.
I apologize
No,
for
not at
apologize
all.
for the distraction. We should.
Yeah, so we're not going down the right, we're not going down the
All right, yeah.
Way road. Let's go back to where we're putting this dangerous dead dying tree removal policy. and how it's being handled, because right now we're basically saying that we would do stuff that is that we're allowing people to do stuff in jurisdiction that doesn't go through any kind of permitting. It's just a policy. Something, sometimes just.
Well, we have that problem already, regardless of which part of the regulations we put.
I know, that's what I want to resolve that. So I want to get that cleared up and how we're putting it in here. We're not putting it here, where we're putting it.
We discussed this already and we decided to take it out and just give it its own thing. That's what we decided.
So it should go, yeah, it should go, it's in the order of things, it should be maybe, I'm suggesting tree removal policy, AA, RDA, NOI. Because an AA is typically for things that require permits. Not necessarily, but
By
generally.
other parts of town, permits for other parts of town. When you say that, you mean permits by other departments.
Any permit.
Right,
Building permit, Board of Health permit.
okay, I guess.
Soil testing permit.
That's what it'd come to next, soil testing. Okay, yes, now that you mentioned that, Courtney, since I didn't write it in here. This is from our last meeting, this file. That we were just gonna take it out of, so it's gonna move to its own section.
Yes, elevate it up to its own section. That's what we decided before.
Fine, I forgot to write it down, so. So I apologize for looking at this again and saying, what did we decide? Okay, and therefore we don't, even though it's in jurisdiction, we're somehow not requiring any kind of standard wetland protection permit. We're okay with that?
That's why you put the form together.
Okay. I think it's a gray area, but
I think what we're doing is we're writing out a policy that says if this sequence of if this set of conditions is met, then it is not significantly altering or impacting the wetlands, and we are providing that guidance and letting the agent evaluate that logic. But if so, then figuring out that it won't have any significant impact to the wetlands.
okay, I like that. Okay, we'll put in something like that. That helps me. Okay, we're done with that. Okay. Let's
Import should be impact.
yeah, don't worry, this is all. I'll remember what that is.
That's just his chicken scratch. He'll change it.
Yeah, this is just a note to me to go move it somewhere else and write something like that, what Jacob was saying. Okay, so that's that. Now, okay. There is this thing about down here. Temporary in nature. This is related to some of the soil testing.
So you had a note in here.
Oh, I see that note.
Expressing concern that we'd be making this less stringent than the state, but I don't believe that's the case, because it's just a plain exempt activity as far as the state regulations are concerned. What I think we want is to say, yes, it's exempt, but you can't, but we want to require an AA for this, so we know about it, and such the Board of Health agrees that it knows that we agree that it's either in or out of jurisdiction, or by how much, or whether there are any other work conditions that we would want to add.
Yeah, or we limit it to doing these things here. Yeah, because once we're limiting it to this, then that bounds it. Okay, so I guess we don't have a, that's just for my own memory. Okay. So we're gonna make, so if we're putting soil testing in here, because it's exempt at the state level, I guess. Is that logic
Yeah.
there? Yeah,
Yes, it's exempt at the state level.
yeah,
And if we want, we can use exactly the same language, which
Mhm.
it's almost true. I think we'd have to go word for word and verify that. I don't think it's exact, but it's close.
but we're actually being more narrow than the state because we're talking about only
Yes.
certain areas.
Still requiring, we would still be requiring the AA.
And so
the
the
state-
AA form, whether we'd have to change the AA form. That's the issues
Yeah,
on
we
the,
should add another. We should add
Yeah,
another
we should add
another
a
item.
section.
A section that says it is temporary in nature, has negligible impacts, and is necessary for planning, etc. That whole clause.
right, okay, fine. So we'll add something there. Okay, so it's at the state level and, okay. So we will rewrite the, add to AA. Fine. Okay, now I see that, let's see. Now, there is another issue that came up in between the last meeting and now we're somewhat related to soil testing. That whether we're requiring anybody who's doing soil testing to come to the commission for something, either an AA or something beyond. And whether we add that would just have to be its own section. Because right now, we've been doing that because the Board of Health has a procedure where they have to get some approval from the Conservation Commission.
Correct. I can speak to that point.
Right, but it's actually not, it's a procedure, it's not in any regulation. The procedure probably has legal precedent, holding of some sort, but it has been called into question. And whether we, what's that?
I didn't follow sort of why. I'm not following why it's not just a question of this is asking us, is this in or out of the jurisdictional area?
It's part of the Board of Health's requirement for them to review a soil testing application. They have to know already that the Conservation Commission has spoken and said either thumbs up, go do it, or here's an AA because we're going to zip it. It's not within our jurisdiction. It
It's
has
the
to be one of those two.
It's the same for building permits as well.
Oh, yes, it is.
The building,
Y'all have reviewed us, I think, 3 separate times.
the building permit issue is codified. This soil testing issue is less codified.
Mhm.
And this is whether we want to play a role in putting in a new section that says that any soil testing should come to us for either an AA, RDA, or something.
I thought the proposal
the-
we're talking about
The
here would
value
say,
of this,
go ahead, Joyce.
well, I was gonna say the value of this is that we have on more than several occasions, but been able to identify that what they're proposing to do is not only in the buffer zone, but within the inner buffer zone. Because some engineers already check it out. They know ahead of time, but some don't. And it gives them a heads up so that they're not doing things twice. And otherwise wouldn't know that. It would be one thing if everybody went out and identified all the wetlands before they did any soil testing or survey, but they don't. So that's what this is leading to.
Definitely happened before that people dug holes and then did all their design, like Joyce said, then they do it.
I guess I don't see how that should have been allowed under today's regulations.
Well, there's nobody,
What do you
they,
mean?
I would say somebody could just go out and do soil testing.
Mhm.
And if the Board of Health didn't press them to get something from conservation, people would be testing.
But
Then
this is you're describing an organizational and sort of problem, not a regulation problem. Which I agree the organizational problem would.
I'm just stating that the reason why it's important to have that, because prior to that, there were issues.
Okay.
It shouldn't happen now.
Well, I mean, the thing is, it was written down it in a couple of places, I think on a form for the Board of Health. It was written in a document that was on the, town website at one point, with all the approvals you needed to get and what order they were in. But
Yep, a flow chart.
yeah, I don't. So you want to say it here, or would the Board of Health more appropriately say it in their regs, or how should we do it?
Well, they could do it theirs, but we could put it here too. Just to might happen faster here. It's sort of my sense of it is that nobody's really questioned the existing procedure, except it has come under question recently, or half questioned. And so that whether that procedure is enough to force people to get something from us, which is what
Is the question around if somebody thinks they want to go do soil testing and they think it's out of jurisdictional area, do they have to ask us first, or is the question?
Right.
I think it depends on if they need a permit from somebody else in order to do that.
But, okay, so Jacob, the issue is that even though it's a long-standing procedure, there's no specific Sherborn regulation that says you must get an AA
Oh, to
before.
show that it's out of jurisdictional area.
Right.
There's nothing that says you have to get this form to show that it's out
And
of
the Board of
jurisdiction.
Health won't do it without an AA, and they're like, there's nowhere that it's in a regulation that says it. So we should just write it down. Every department can write it down in their regs whenever they have a chance, and then it's codified, even though it's a long-standing procedure. It is actually codified in a few places. It's fine. I think we're just
So would
belt and suspenders.
okay, so what is the thing that we want to add? Do we want to add if you need to demonstrate that a project is outside of jurisdictional area, use an AA form?
No, I would just say for any soil testing, any soil testing
No,
needs review from the commission. And then that could be the
or
leading.
any
AA.
permit.
What? Are we
Any
calling
permit,
AA a permit?
Any permit.
But is an AA considered a permit?
No. Any permit, it's any other, if there's a Board of Health permit, it should be reviewed with an AA. Because it might be a distribution box that doesn't require soil testing. Usually septic designs do, and we usually catch, if a septic design is going to need to be, need an application or permit, or doesn't, or it's out, we can just update the AA that was done for soil testing. So it should be a Board of Health permit, so that it kind of captures everything.
So we're saying that
It could be a well, it could be a well, it could be a well, it could be a pool, it could be whatever. The permit, it should be restricted to a permit, not necessarily soil testing.
So we're basically anything that requires a permit from, is it just the Board of Health, or is it also the building permit is already in the zoning bylaw?
Right, it's the Board of
Right.
Health that puts us at the front of the gate for any of their permits.
So do we want to limit it so that, so Joyce, you suggested we just limit it
No,
to,
I don't think we want to limit it. I think we want to say, I don't see a reason to limit it. I would say anytime another part of the town government needs to know whether an activity is outside of just a jurisdictional area from the point of view of conservation, they should use an AA, or they should submit an AA application.
or they could do an RDA. I mean, that's, I don't want to limit
Oh,
it.
yeah. But yeah, or one of those. We can give them a list of the things they can use to demonstrate that.
So I guess we'd have to define a project then, since, it's a little easier to see if it's a Board of Health permit, because a project could be, I don't know what project could mean in town. What projects require permits? The building department, Board of Health, planning.
There's stormwater.
That means ZBA comprehensive permits.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yes, but
they can only get that afterwards. The ZBA is different because they
Yeah.
have to enforce our thing first as part of their process, and we can't look at their NOIs or something else until after the permit process has gone through.
Okay.
Or we can't handle that way.
And sometimes the ZBA just gives you a finding, not permitting some other activity.
Okay, well, maybe we should phrase it generally and then just list the two examples we know of, which are building department and Board of Health.
Well, I don't know if the general thing would just be too broad.
Why don't we put Board of Health and whatever you just said, Jacob, because I'm half asleep. And we'll
Building
think
department.
about what other departments potentially.
Yes, we could amend it another time. So we're gonna limit this to anything that requires permit from the Board of Health and the building department. Which is already codified anyway, but. Okay, would require review from the Concom leading to. This is EG, for example. Needs a review from Conservation Commission, leading to one of those three things, really. Does that make sense? At this point?
And this is just sort of a standalone clause that we put somewhere in the
Right.
regulations. Okay.
I'll work with you, Joyce. Stand alone. Okay. Okay. And the last thing, so we did the soil testing one, we did this thing here. Oh yeah, I guess we didn't find out about. Did anybody research this cost issue that came out of last time? Okay, I won't go back to, I thought I sent an email out to go after our last meeting that we were gonna research something. But I can't remember what it is, but maybe that's enough. And okay, and we'll have to do some revisions to the AA. That we could just do on our own at this point. Okay, so we're adding the tree thing to the AA. Oh, yeah, right. Oh, never mind. I'll talk with people later. I'm tired too, even though it hasn't been a very long meeting. By normal standards. Okay. That's all I'm prepared to go through on the regs tonight. So we got something done. Let's see here. What were we getting into the AA? Were we adding the, somebody has to help me for a minute. We were gonna add to the AA
Form.
what?
Add to the AA
Have
form.
the option for for temporary it doesn't need a full review because it's temporary in nature and matches the
Oh,
extent
yeah,
of the
right,
snake.
okay.
And no trees are removed, right? Or are those the
Yeah,
three
I remember what I phrased
conditions?
that.
Yeah.
Okay, related to the tree thing base, but it's specific to the tree policy. Is it
No, I
really?
think it was that paragraph 4. I don't have
Soil
it, I'm
testing.
not looking at it now anymore, but
Okay, I know where to find you people who have better minds than I do at the moment. Okay, so I'm just saving this thing here. And then we can, when do we want to, Joyce, do we want to,
So I hope that, we don't have any more continuances. We don't have anything new to advertise for the next meeting. There will be something for the following meeting. At least one more something. So we can say 8:45.
or 7:45?
7:45? Sorry.
Is that what you meant?
That's what I meant.
Okay,
Thank you for reading my mind.
good. I must have been looking at that little phone symbol. So, yeah, okay,
At least your ESP is still working.
yeah, right. Okay, I move that we continue this hearing to 7:45 on May 2nd.
Second, that confused me.
Yeah, right. I should have said May 2nd, second. But doing well here. Did you second it, I think? Okay, any further discussion? Roll call vote. Michael, aye. Kurt,
Aye.
Terry,
hi.
Courtney,
Bye.
Jacob,
Aye.
Steve,
Aye.
Matt.
Aye.
Okay. Let's wrap up what we have left here. Okay. The budget and conservation agent position. We did interview Courtney and I with Joyce and the people at the town hall who are in charge of human resources, Jeremy and Diane, administrative assistant. We did interview the candidate as the conservation agent who would sort of like be a agent in training. Given her, she has some good experience, but not a lot of wetland protection. And we're trying to meet next week to talk about whether this person is a possible fit. I mean, she's actually quite impressive. It's a matter of how we see how it fits with the budget and training issues and stuff like that. So I think I mean, we've been advertising for a long time. We haven't gotten anybody who's really had wetland protection experience. So in the case of having Joyce around, who's willing to do some training on some of the more sort of technical stuff like the soils, the wetland delineation issues. I mean, learning the regulations and other things is something somebody can pick up a little bit more on their own, but doing delineations is a whole other art. So we're gonna see whether this candidate could fit within the budget and make sense next week. And I think that's all I need to say. If anybody has any other questions, or Courtney or Joyce, should we say anything more? Is there anything more to be said?
Nope.
Any questions from anybody? Okay. Then the warrant article and the affordable housing projects. I'm writing in something to just defend what we already sent them on that for Farm Road. Washington Street homes. Guess we've got to work on. Somebody's got to write up the issues that we should talk about and bring up It's not gonna, it's gonna come up next week, but it's not gonna get down to wetland issues there. I don't know if somebody has some time to go work on that. Anybody volunteer to go work with Joyce and me on learning about that project and what issues we should bring up at the ZBA? Okay. Well, then why don't you guys think about it? It's my last hope that I don't have to do this one again. So it would be nice if some other people can contribute. But it'll be on the agenda for next meeting. We'll have to go through the project.
I would help, but I have a plant sale to run in 4 weeks. And I'm up to my ears in proverbial plant alligators.
Sure. I understand that. We all have that. We all have our long list of things. But I'll leave it at that for now, but some of it we'll just have to do and maybe just walk through the project at a meeting just to see what thoughts people have, and we'll just do it that way. Okay, site issues, questions from Ms. Joyce?
No.
Okay. Okay, I think we're done. Does anybody have anything else, or did I miss anything? Okey doke. I will hereby move to adjourn at 8:45, 8:47, I guess.
Second.
Second.
Any further discussion? Okay, roll call vote. Michael, I, Kurt,
Aye.
Terry,
Hi.
Courtney,
Aye.
Jacob,
Aye.
Matt,
Aye.
Steve.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.